She freed a wolf bound in silver chains. When he shifted, the Alpha King claimed her as his own. Mist clung to the mountains like a heavy veil, softening the jagged edges of the rocks and muffling the cries of the forest creatures. Elara moved carefully along the narrow path, her cloak pulled tightly around her, the hood shadowing her face. Her basket swung gently at her side, filled with herbs meant to heal the sick in her village. Each step was careful. The forest was rumored to be cursed, a place where travelers often vanished without a trace. But Elara was not like other villagers. Orphaned at a young age, she had learned to walk alone, to trust her senses above all else. The whispers of the forest did not scare her. They guided her. She listened to the faint rustle of leaves, the distant howl of wolves, and the rhythm of her own heartbeat. Tonight, the forest seemed almost alive, watching her. As she rounded a bend, she saw it, a clearing bathed in silver moonlight, where the mist parted to reveal a figure unlike any she had ever imagined. A wolf lay in the center, massive and majestic, its fur shimmering as if dusted with starlight. But it was not free. Heavy silver chains bound its limbs, etched with runes that glowed faintly, pulsating with a magic she could feel in her bones. Elara froze. Fear prickled at her skin, yet something deeper called to her, a strange, urgent pull that demanded she act. Villagers often spoke of the wolf as a legend, the Alpha King of the mountains, cursed by a sorcerer long ago. To see him now, alive and bound, made her chest ache. Her hands trembled, but she approached. You are in pain," she whispered, her voice barely louder than the wind. The wolf's golden eyes fixed on her, intelligent and wary, filled with a grief that seemed centuries old. It growled low in its throat, a warning she did not fully understand. But Elara could not turn away. She knelt beside him, studying the chains. The runes glowed brighter as she touched them, and a voice, faint but clear, whispered in her mind. "Only the heart, unbroken, can free me." Her breath caught. She did not understand, yet she knew what she must do. Slowly, deliberately, she worked to undo the magic. She repeated a prayer her mother had taught her long ago, words of healing and light. The silver chains rattled under her fingers, resisting, but she would not stop. Hours seemed to pass in silence, broken only by the wolf's low growls and the occasional snap of a branch underfoot. Finally, with a shiver that ran through her entire body, the last chain fell away. It clattered to the ground, disappearing into a puff of silvery smoke. The wolf's body shuddered, and then, in a swirl of light and shadow, it began to change. Elara stumbled back, her heart pounding. Before her stood a man, taller than any she had seen, with hair as dark as midnight and eyes that glimmered like molten gold. His presence was both terrifying and mesmerizing. The wolf she had freed had shifted, transformed into the Alpha King himself. Kale! The name burned in her mind as if the forest itself had whispered it. His gaze locked onto hers, intense and searching, and a strange warmth coiled in her stomach, a mix of fear and fascination. "You freed me," he said, his voice deep, rich, carrying the weight of centuries. There was gratitude, but also something else, something dangerous. "Do you know what you have done?" Elara shook her head. "I only wanted to help." Her voice sounded small against his commanding presence. She noticed the faint scars along his arms, the way his hands flexed as if ready to fight, and the tension in his shoulders that suggested constant battle within himself. Kale took a step forward, and the ground seemed to hum beneath him. Few have courage enough to face the chains, fewer still to break them. "And yet," he paused, his eyes narrowing, "you have done both. That makes you mine." Elara's chest tightened. She had expected danger, perhaps even anger, but his words carried a claim she did not understand. She opened her mouth to protest, but Kale's gaze held her still, firm and unyielding. "I do not understand," she whispered. "Yours? How? What do you mean?" He stepped closer, the silver moonlight glinting off his armor-like clothing. "By freeing me, you have bound yourself to me," he said simply, as if stating an undeniable truth. The wind carried his words, and the trees themselves seemed to shiver. Ilara's instincts screamed for caution. She wanted to run to escape, yet her feet refused to move. Something about this man, the Alpha King, was not just terrifying but irresistible. She felt drawn to him, an invisible tether pulling her closer with every heartbeat. Cale studied her, his eyes softening for a fleeting moment, revealing the loneliness that had defined him for centuries. Then, almost abruptly, his wolf instinct surged to the surface. He lowered his head slightly, nostrils flaring, sensing her in a way that transcended mere human understanding. Ilara's hand went to her chest, feeling the rapid pulse of her own fear and excitement. "You are not just a wolf," she whispered. "No," he said. "And you are not just a girl." His voice was a growl now, quiet but powerful, as if the forest itself acknowledged his words. "You are the first to see me, truly see me in centuries." A sudden rustle from the trees snapped them both to attention. Cale's body tensed, wolf instincts alert, while Ilara felt the thrill of danger, and the certainty that she was meant to be here. Whoever or whatever approached was not to be ignored. A shadow flitted between the trunks, moving with unnatural speed. Cale's eyes glowed, and he stepped protectively in front of Ilara, his posture fierce and commanding. "Stay behind me," he warned. Ilara nodded, heart hammering, and watched as he moved like a predator born to the wild, every motion precise, powerful. The shadow paused, then vanished as quickly as it had appeared. Cale's gaze returned to her, softer now, almost human. "You have no idea what you have done," he murmured. "The chains were only part of the curse. By freeing me, you have set forces in motion that you cannot yet see." Ilara swallowed hard. I wanted only to help." Cale's eyes softened again, and he stepped closer, lowering his hand to hover just above hers. "And you did. But this is no longer a matter of choice. The world has shifted the moment your hands touched those chains. You are tied to me now, by fate, by courage, by something older than either of us." The wind picked up, carrying whispers through the trees, as though the forest itself was murmuring secrets. The moonlight illuminated the scars on Cale's skin and the depth of his golden eyes. Ilara's fear mingled with awe. She felt the pull of destiny, of power she could not name, and a warmth in her chest that both excited and terrified her. "I don't know if I am ready," she admitted, her voice trembling, though she spoke more truthfully than ever before. Cale's gaze hardened, but it was not anger. It was certainty. "Readiness is not required. Courage brought you here, and now you must walk the path with me."
Ilara's mind raced. What path?
What danger? What was she agreeing to by simply standing in this moonlit clearing, staring at the man who had once been a wolf? Her heart said flee, but her instincts whispered that leaving was impossible. Not while he remained here, bound by more than chains, and not while the strange connection between them refused to break. A sudden chill swept through the clearing. The silver mist thickened, twisting around their feet, rising like ghostly fingers. Cale's eyes narrowed. "They know," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The ones who cursed me are aware. By freeing me, you have drawn them near." Ilara's pulse quickened. Who are they?" Cale did not answer immediately. He studied the forest, the shadows, the mist that now carried an almost palpable menace. Then he turned back to her, his face solemn, regal, terrifying in its intensity. "They are the ones who would see me fall forever, and you are the reason I will survive this night." Ilara took a step closer, despite the fear. "Then I will help you. I don't understand everything, but I will not leave you." Cale's lips curved slightly, the first hint of something resembling a smile, though his golden eyes never lost their edge. "Bravery suits you, Ilara, but bravery alone will not be enough. Soon, you will see the full weight of the world you stepped into tonight." The wind howled through the trees, carrying with it a whisper of ancient magic, and warning. From the edge of the clearing a faint glow appeared, a shadow moving closer, deliberate, watching, waiting. Kale's stance shifted, his senses alert, body coiled like a spring. Elara's hand instinctively reached for his arm, feeling the strength and power radiating from him. The forest fell silent for a heartbeat, as if holding its breath. And then Kale's voice broke the silence, low and commanding, yet filled with something she could not name. "Whatever comes next," he said, eyes locked on the approaching shadow, "you will not leave my side. Because once the Alpha King moves, nothing, no curse, no force, no fate, can undo what has begun." Elara's heart raced. She knew, in that instant, that her life had changed forever. The wolf she had freed was no longer just a creature of legend. He was the Alpha King, powerful, haunted, and bound to her in ways she was only beginning to understand. And as the first glimmer of the shadows stepped into the clearing, Elara realized that her courage would soon be tested as never before, and that the night had only just begun. The forest behind them seemed to sigh as Kale and Elara left the moonlit clearing. Mist curled around their feet, twisting like silent serpents, and shadows lingered in every corner, as if the trees themselves were watching. Elara's heart still raced from the night's encounter. The wolf she had freed, the Alpha King himself, was walking beside her now. Not a beast, but a man whose presence demanded respect and attention. Kale's steps were silent, measured, yet each movement spoke of strength restrained. Elara could not help but notice how his golden eyes shifted constantly, alert, as though the very air could betray some hidden threat. She kept close, instinctively knowing that danger lurked in every shadow. After hours of walking, they reached a cliffside path that wound upward toward a hidden fortress. From below it seemed merely a jagged rise in the mountains, but as they climbed, the true scale of Kale's domain revealed itself. The fortress was carved into the rock itself, towers twisting like fingers reaching toward the stars. Silver banners fluttered in the wind, etched with symbols that pulsed faintly with magic. Kale stopped at a large iron-bound gate. "This is my sanctuary," he said quietly. "Few have ever stepped inside, and fewer still will leave unscathed. Inside you will see what the world has forgotten or tried to erase." Elara nodded, her curiosity battling her apprehension. She had freedom, yes, but now she realized the magnitude of what she had done. She was no longer an ordinary village girl. She had stepped into the realm of kings, curses, and powers that dwarfed anything she had imagined. The gates creaked open at Kale's touch, sliding aside to reveal a courtyard bathed in pale moonlight. Statues of long-dead warriors lined the walls, their eyes carved with meticulous care, gazing as if judging every visitor. Silver mist lingered here too, weaving between the stones and curling around the carved faces. The air smelled faintly of herbs and old incense, an odd comfort amidst the eerie silence. Kale led her inside a great hall, its ceilings vaulted and arched like the ribcage of some ancient creature. Tapestries lined the walls, depicting scenes of war and sorrow, victories and betrayals. Elara walked slowly, her eyes drawn to each image. There was a story here, one older than her village, older than any living memory. "You see only fragments," Kale said, his voice echoing softly in the hall. "This fortress was once a seat of power, long before the curse took me. My ancestors ruled wisely, until envy and betrayal poisoned their reign. And then came the sorcerer, whose hatred has lasted centuries." Elara felt a chill run through her. "The curse," she whispered.
It was him!
Kale nodded. "Yes, he bound me in silver, stripped me of my throne, and left me in chains to linger between man and wolf. Only one with courage enough to defy the forest's warnings, and heart pure enough to see beyond the beast, could release me. That is you, Elara." Her cheeks flushed at the weight of his words. "I did not know. I only wanted to help the wolf." Kale studied her, his golden eyes softening slightly. "Intentions are not measured by understanding, but by action. You acted without hesitation. That is why the bond exists." Elara shivered, partly from the chill in the hall and partly from the strange heat that stirred in her chest at his gaze. She did not fully understand the connection, only that it was magnetic, invisible, and impossible to ignore. "You must know," Kale continued, his tone shifting, darkening slightly. "The curse is not gone. It waits, lingering, like smoke. The sorcerer may be long dead, but the magic remains. He left traps, protections, and shadows that hunger for those who dare to free me." Ilara swallowed hard. Shadows? Tail's jaw tightened. Yes, dark creatures, remnants of his spell work. Some are conscious, some simply act on instinct. They will not rest until the Alpha King is returned to chains, or until all who freed him are destroyed. Her hand went to her chest. I did not know it would be like this." "You did not know," Kale admitted. "But now you are here. And you must face it with me." Alara's breath caught. The thought of facing supernatural threats was terrifying, yet she felt an odd certainty. She had freed him, and whatever dangers came, she could not abandon him, not after seeing the pain and isolation in his eyes. Kale led her further into the fortress. They passed through halls lined with ancient tomes and artifacts, each glowing faintly with protective magic. The deeper they went, the more Ilara felt the weight of history pressing against her. This place was alive with memory, with power, with sorrow. Finally, they reached a room at the heart of the fortress. It was circular, the walls carved with sigils that pulsed with silver light. In the center lay a pool of water, perfectly still, reflecting both the moonlight and the glowing runes. "This is where the curse can be studied," Kale said, "and perhaps undone." Alara peered into the pool, her reflection mingling with shadows and faint images of a wolf she had never forgotten. "Can it really be undone?" Kale's gaze dropped to the water. "The curse is a part of me, a weight I have carried for centuries. Freedom is possible, but it requires more than courage. It requires trust, understanding, and sometimes sacrifice."
Ilara felt a shiver.
She had already risked her life to free him. What more could the curse demand? Kael stepped closer. "You will need to understand me," he said, his voice softer now, almost intimate. "Not just as the Alpha King, not just as the wolf you freed, but as the man I have been forced to become. The bond between us will guide you, but it is fragile. Do not mistake it for safety." Ilara nodded, her throat dry. She could feel the gravity of his words, the weight of destiny pressing down on them both. And yet, for the first time, she felt something else, a spark of determination. She would not falter, not now. Not when the fate of this cursed king and the forces surrounding him rested in part on her courage. Kael studied her, the flicker of surprise in his golden eyes almost imperceptible. "You are not afraid," he said. "I am," she admitted, "but I cannot leave you." A long silence stretched between them, filled only by the faint hum of magic in the air. Then Kael's expression hardened. "The curse has enemies," he said. "They will come for me and for you. The sorcerer's magic is patient. It waits for weakness, for fear, for doubt, and once it strikes, it will not stop until it has consumed all." Elara's heart raced. "Then we fight together?" Kael nodded. "Together," he said, his voice low, commanding yet tempered with a rare softness. "But you must understand, I am not easy to protect, nor easy to trust. I have lived centuries with no companion, no ally, no one. The wolf inside me has ruled far longer than the man. And yet," he paused, eyes meeting hers, golden and unyielding. "Yet in you, I feel something I have not felt in lifetimes." Ilara's breath caught. "What is it?" "Hope," Kael said simply. "And fear. And desire. All tangled into one." Her pulse quickened, a strange warmth spreading across her chest. The fortress, the curse, the shadowed threats, They all seemed distant compared to the intensity of his gaze. She could feel the magnetic pull of his presence, the way it seemed to anchor her to him even as the danger pressed in from all sides. Then, a sudden noise shattered the fragile calm. A window rattled violently, and the mist outside swirled into unnatural shapes. Shadows crept along the walls, moving with a deliberate purpose. Cale's body tensed, muscles coiled like a predator ready to strike. "They have found us," he said, his voice low and urgent. Elara's heart raced. "Who?" Kael's golden eyes scanned the shadows. "Minions of the curse. They were bound to the forest, waiting for the one who freed me. Now that it is done, they will not rest." Elara stepped closer to him, feeling the full force of his presence. "Then we faced them," she said, her voice steady despite the fear curling in her stomach. Cale's gaze softened for a fraction of a second. "Good," he said, "but know this. Once the shadows strike, there is no turning back. You will see the world as it truly is, and I will see you as well." The first shadow moved closer, a dark figure gliding through the mist outside. Cale's hand went to his side, fingers brushing against the hilt of a blade she did not see. His golden eyes narrowed, the wolf within flickering at the surface, ready to emerge. Alara's breath caught. She had stepped into a world of curses, kings, and ancient magic. There was no safety, no retreat, only the choice to stand beside the man she had freed, or be consumed by the shadows that sought him. The wind howled through the fortress walls, carrying whispers that made her skin prickle. The pool of silver light in the center of the room shimmered and rippled as if reacting to the danger outside. Cale's stance was commanding, protective, and unwavering. "You are mine," he said quietly, almost to himself, yet loud enough for Elara to hear. "And I will not let them take you or me again." Alara's heart raced. She did not fully understand what bond had formed between them, but she knew it was stronger than fear, stronger than the shadows, and stronger than the curse itself. Outside, the shadows advanced, silent, deliberate, patient. Inside, Cale and Elara stood side by side, the fortress alive with tension, magic, and unspoken longing. And as the first shadow stepped across the threshold, the golden eyes of the Alpha King blazed with power, and the battle for both freedom and destiny began. Dawn broke over the fortress, painting the stone walls in hues of silver and rose. The mist that had haunted the mountains overnight clung still to the peaks, curling like restless spirits. Elara stood at a high balcony, looking down at the courtyard where the first light of day caught the edges of the statues and banners. Every corner of the fortress seemed alive with the weight of history, the whispers of the past pressing against her mind. Cale appeared silently behind her. His presence was immediate, commanding, and comforting all at once. She had grown accustomed to his silent steps, to the way his golden eyes always seemed to catch the smallest movements, the faintest hints of danger. But today he did not speak immediately. Instead, he watched her, letting the wind stir her hair around her face, the sunlight casting shadows on her shoulders. "You are restless," he said finally, his voice low. "The shadows yesterday, they did not touch you, yet your heart beats faster than it should." Elara turned, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. "I am thinking," she admitted, "about the curse, about the shadows, about what comes next." Cale's gaze softened for a moment, just enough for vulnerability to peek through. "Thinking is good," he said, "but you must also learn to act. Courage alone cannot defeat what waits for us." Elara nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing on her shoulders. She had freed him, yes, but freeing him was only the beginning. If the curse and its remnants were not stopped, the shadows would strike again, and this time they might not be able to hold them off. Cale turned and led her to the inner courtyard. The air was cooler here, and the silver mist swirled around their feet. "You must learn," he said, "to see as I see, to feel as I feel. Only then can you survive what is coming." Elara followed, curiosity and fear battling in her chest. She had always been resourceful, clever, and brave, but she was still human. And Kale, he was not. The wolf within him, the strength, the instincts, the centuries of knowledge, she could feel it in the air around him. They began with training. Kale's lessons were not gentle. He tested her endurance, her focus, and her instincts. At first, Alara stumbled and faltered, her arms weak from swings, her legs heavy from dodges. But Kale's patience was remarkable. He did not shout, he did not scold. Instead, he observed, corrected, and encouraged. "Do not fight the instinct," Kale told her. "Learn to understand it. Feel it, do not fear it. Magic, shadows, even the wolf within me. They all have rhythm. There is a pulse to everything. You must find it." Alara focused, closing her eyes briefly and listening. To her heartbeat, to the wind, to the faint hum of power in the fortress walls. Slowly, she began to sense it, the rhythm of magic, the pull of the shadows, the pulse of Kale himself beside her. "Good," he said, stepping closer, the warmth of his presence wrapped around her, almost suffocating in its intensity.
You are not merely mortal, Alara.
"You have strength beyond what you realize, but strength alone will not keep you safe." She looked up at him, meeting his golden gaze. "What will keep me safe, then?" Kale's lips curved slightly, but it was not a smile. "Trust, discipline, and the bond between us. It is fragile, yet it is stronger than any magic that hunts us." Alara felt a shiver run through her. The bond, she understood now in part, why he had claimed her in the moonlit clearing. It was not just ownership or command, it was protection, recognition, and a connection that transcended words. And yet, it was terrifying. She had grown up alone. To be tied so closely to someone so powerful, so ancient, so unpredictable, was both exhilarating and frightening. Their training continued throughout the day. Kyle taught her to move silently, to strike with precision, to read the energy of her surroundings. Every lesson brought new discoveries, new glimpses into Kale's complex nature. She saw the wolf in his reflexes, the king in his commands, and the man in the brief moments of vulnerability he allowed her to witness. As the sun dipped below the mountains, casting the fortress in shadow, Kale led her to the inner sanctum, a room lined with ancient scrolls and tomes. The walls glowed faintly, the runes pulsing with residual magic. "This is where we prepare for the true test," Kale said. "The curse has left pieces of itself scattered across the land. Shadows, traps, remnants of old magic. They are clever, patient, and dangerous. You must learn to anticipate them, to recognize their presence before they strike."
Alara's fingers traced the edges of a large tome.
She felt a hum of magic under her skin, as if the fortress itself were alive, guiding her, testing her. "How do we begin?" she asked. Kale's gaze met hers, steady and unwavering. "We begin with the heart. The wolf is strong, yes, but the heart, yours, mine, is the true anchor. If the bond is strong, the shadows cannot break it. We practice, we endure, and we trust in what we have found in each other." Alara's chest tightened. Trust, she had never had reason to trust anyone completely, and yet she found herself leaning into it, even as fear whispered at the edges of her mind. She nodded. "I will try." Kale's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "You will do more than try. You will endure, and you will rise stronger than they expect." Night fell fully, and the fortress was cloaked in darkness, lit only by the pale glow of enchanted lanterns. Outside, the wind howled through the mountains, carrying distant howls from the forest. Shadows moved at the edges of vision, testing, probing, waiting. Kale and Alara trained under the silver light, each movement synchronized, each step a dance of trust and instinct. Alara felt her confidence growing, her connection to Kale deepening. She could sense his emotions, his protective instincts, and in turn, he seemed to feel her courage, her determination. Suddenly, a sharp noise echoed through the hall, a crash of stone against stone, followed by a low growl that was not Kale's. Alara froze.
Elara froze.
Kale's golden eyes flared, wolf instincts surging. "They are here," he whispered, voice taut with controlled fury. "The shadows. They are testing us." From the darkness, figures began to emerge, shadowy shapes that moved with unnatural grace. Some were barely visible, blending into the night. Others had eyes that glimmered like embers. Elara's heart pounded, but Kale's presence steadied her. "Stay close," he ordered. "Do not act without thinking. Feel their rhythm." Elara focused, letting the lessons of the day guide her. She felt the movement of the shadows, anticipated their strikes, and moved with precision. Kael was beside her, a whirlwind of power and grace, striking with controlled force, his wolf instincts perfectly balanced with human strategy. They fought side by side, the bond between them visible in every synchronized movement. Elara realized then that the bond was more than connection. It was a lifeline, a shared strength that amplified both of them. Finally, after what felt like hours, the shadows retreated, melting into the darkness from which they had come. Elara's chest heaved with exertion, sweat dampening her brow, but a triumphant thrill coursed through her. Bale placed a hand on her shoulder, steadying her. "Well done," he said, his golden eyes gleaming with pride and something softer, admiration, perhaps even affection. Elara smiled faintly, her heart still racing. "We survived." Kale shook his head, a shadow of a smile on his lips. "This is only the beginning. The curse is patient. It watches. It waits. And soon, it will strike again." Elara's chest tightened. She had felt the danger, faced it, and survived, but she knew he was right. The shadows were only the first test. The true challenge was yet to come. They walked back to the inner sanctum in silence, both lost in thought. The bond between them had grown, undeniable and unbreakable, yet the weight of the curse loomed over them like a storm on the horizon. Kale stopped at the edge of the balcony, looking out at the mountains bathed in silver moonlight. "You are stronger than you realize, Elara," he said quietly. "But strength alone will not save you. Or me. The heart, the bond, that is what will endure when all else falls away." Elara stepped closer, feeling the warmth of his presence, the steady strength he offered. I will not falter," she whispered. "Not now, not ever." Kale's eyes softened, and for a moment the wolf within him seemed to retreat, leaving only the man, tall, regal, and haunted. "I believe you," he said, "and that belief, it is the light in the darkness." But the light was fragile. As they stood together, a cold wind swept through the fortress, carrying with it a whisper of malice. A shadow fell across the balcony, long and deliberate. Elara's pulse quickened.
Kael, something is coming.
Kale's golden eyes narrowed, wolf instinct surfacing in a flash of power.
"Yes," he said, voice low, commanding. "And this time—"
"It will not wait for courage. It will strike at the heart." The wind howled louder, the shadows deepened, and the fortress seemed to hold its breath. The bond between them pulsed with energy, fragile yet unyielding, as if aware that the next challenge would test everything they had learned. Elara gripped Kale's hand, feeling his warmth, his strength, his unwavering presence. "We face it together," she said. Kale's gaze softened, and he gave a single nod. Together. The mist swirled around them, carrying whispers of curses, shadows, and destiny. Outside, the first signs of a new threat began to stir, a force ancient, patient, and relentless. And in that moment, Elara knew that the bond between the Alpha King and herself had been forged not just by courage, but by fate. Whatever came next, they would face it side by side. The night had only just begun. The moon hung high over the mountains, spilling silver light across the fortress and the surrounding forest. Mist curled between the towers, twisting like restless spirits, carrying whispers of ancient magic. Elara stood at the edge of the balcony, her cloak drawn tight around her shoulders, and gazed at the distant peaks where darkness seemed to gather. Kale appeared beside her, silent as the night, his golden eyes catching the silver glow. He did not speak immediately. Instead, he watched the shadows below, where movement hinted at the approach of the curse's remnants. The silence between them was heavy with unspoken tension, the kind that spoke of battles fought, dangers faced, and bonds forged under impossible circumstances. "Alara," he said at last, his voice low, resonant, carrying both authority and care. "Tonight we face what has haunted me for centuries. The curse. It will not rest. It will strike at us, at everything we have fought to protect." Alara turned to him, meeting his golden gaze. She felt fear, yes, but also determination, courage she had never known she possessed. "Then we fight," she said. "Together." Kale's expression softened, the wolf within him restrained but ready, his instincts alert. "Together," he repeated. And in that single word there was promise, protection, and recognition of the bond that had grown between them since the night she freed him from his silver chains.
They descended from the balcony into the fortress courtyard.
The air was thick with tension, every shadow seeming to breathe with purpose. The statues lining the walls appeared almost alive, their carved eyes glinting, as if watching, judging. Alara felt the pulse of magic in the air, the weight of centuries pressing against her. But she was not alone. Kale's presence beside her was steady, powerful, and comforting. "The curse is patient," Kale said as they walked.
It has waited for centuries for someone like you to awaken me. Now it will test us.
Every shadow, every spell, every trap it left. They are all meant to break our bond, to weaken us before the final strike. Alara nodded, heart racing. She had trained, learned, endured, but the thought of what was coming made her stomach tighten. Yet she could not deny the strength growing inside her. Not just her courage, but the bond between her and Kale. That connection had become a lifeline, an anchor against the storm of shadows gathering in the night. As they approached the heart of the fortress, the inner sanctum glowed with silver light. The pool at its center reflected the moon, rippling faintly as if sensing the danger approaching. Kale gestured for her to step forward. "Here," he said. "We prepare. This is where we face the full force of the curse. But know this. Victory is not only about strength. It is about heart, trust, and courage." Alara nodded, taking a deep breath. She could feel the magic in the air, the pulse of the fortress, the bond with Kale. Every lesson, every challenge, every heartbeat since she freed him had led to this moment. A sudden chill swept through the sanctum. The pool's surface shimmered, and shadows began to rise from its depths, dark and fluid, twisting into forms that were both human and beast. They moved with deliberate purpose, circling the room as if testing her, testing them. Kale's eyes narrowed, wolf instincts flaring. "They are here," he whispered. "And they will not stop until they break us." Alara stepped closer to him, feeling his warmth and strength. "We will not let them," she said, her voice steady. "We are stronger together." Kale's lips curved slightly, though the wolf inside him remained alert. "Yes," he said. "Together." The shadows advanced, rushing like a living tide. Kale moved first, a blur of power and precision. His strikes were calculated, his body coiled like a spring, wolf and man perfectly balanced. Alara followed, her movements guided by instinct and training. She anticipated the shadow's strikes, moved with precision, and countered with courage. They fought side by side, a rhythm forming between them. Kale's golden eyes met hers with every move, communicating silently, reinforcing the bond that had grown stronger with each trial. The shadows were relentless, but so were they. Every strike, every dodge, every movement was a testament to trust and unity. Suddenly, a shadow lunged directly at Alara. She faltered for a heartbeat, fear gripping her, but Kale's hand shot out, steadying her, guiding her movements. Together, they struck down the shadow, their bond amplifying their strength. "You are ready," Kale said, his voice low but steady, filled with pride. "The bond is unbreakable." Alara's chest heaved, sweat dampening her brow. But she felt exhilaration, a thrill that came not from victory alone, but from standing beside Kale, facing darkness together, But the battle was far from over. The largest shadow, taller and darker than the rest, emerged from the pool. Its presence was suffocating, its power palpable. It moved with intelligence, circling them, testing their defenses. Kale's jaw tightened. "The core of the curse," he said. "It has come to finish what was begun centuries ago." Elara nodded, gripping his hand. "Then we finish it first." The shadow struck. Kale moved instantly, intercepting its attacks with a combination of wolf strength and human strategy. Elara followed, her movements precise, her courage unwavering. Together, they formed a perfect balance of power and will. The shadow's strikes grew more forceful, more deliberate, yet Kale and Elara anticipated, countered, and endured. The pool of silver light at the center of the room shimmered, reacting to the battle, amplifying the power of the bond between them. Elara realized then that the bond was more than connection. It was the key. The curse had underestimated their unity, the strength born from trust, courage, and heart. Every shadow that fell, every strike that missed, every counter that landed, was a testament to the bond that no curse could sever. Finally, with a coordinated effort, Kale and Elara struck together. The largest shadow screamed, a sound that echoed through the fortress, shaking the walls. It dissolved into mist, fading into nothingness, leaving only silence in its wake. Alara's legs trembled from exhaustion, but she remained standing. Kale's hand rested on her shoulder, steadying her. They looked at each other, breath mingling, hearts racing. "It is done," Kale said, his golden eyes reflecting relief and awe. "The curse, it is broken." Elara shook her head, still catching her breath. We did it," she said, disbelief and joy mixing in her voice. Kale's lips curved into a small, rare smile. "Yeah." Together we endured. Together we triumphed. And together we are free. The fortress seemed to sigh in relief, the silver mist receding, sunlight beginning to peek through the windows. The statues no longer seemed to judge. They seemed to bow in acknowledgement of the victory. The ancient halls, once heavy with sorrow and history, now carried a sense of renewal. Kale turned to Elara, his gaze soft, almost tender. "You have changed me," he said quietly. "Not only did you free me from chains, but you reminded me of what it means to be human, to feel, to hope, to trust." Elara felt her chest tighten, warmth spreading through her. "And you have changed me," she said softly. "You taught me courage, strength, and that even in darkness, light can be found." Kale stepped closer, golden eyes holding hers. "There is more yet to come," he said. "The world is vast, and there are those who still seek power, who do not understand the bond we share. But whatever comes, I will face it with you." Elara nodded, her hand resting on his. "And I will face it with you. Always." For a moment, silence fell, peaceful yet charged with energy. The bond between them pulsed, unbreakable, a living connection forged through courage, trust, and love. Then, from the distance, a faint whisper rode the wind, a voice soft yet deliberate, carrying a promise and a warning. "The wolf's heart is never still," it said, fading into the mountains. Elara shivered, but Kale's hand tightened over hers. "Do not fear," he said. "We have endured the curse. We will endure what comes next together." She nodded, her eyes reflecting the moonlight, the strength of the bond between them, and the journey they had shared. Whatever shadows lingered, whatever dangers lay ahead, they would face them side by side. Kale shifted slightly, wolf instincts brushing against the edges of his humanity, yet he remained anchored by her presence. He looked at her, golden eyes full of emotion. "You are mine," he said softly, yet with certainty. Elara smiled faintly, the warmth in her chest spreading to her hands and feet.
"And you are mine," she replied, voice steady, filled with trust and courage.
The moonlight bathed them in silver, the fortress quiet now, peaceful but alive with history, magic, and the bond that had endured centuries of darkness. Together they stepped from the pool's reflection into the light of the new day. Whatever came next, the Alpha King and the woman who had freed him were no longer bound by fear, chains, or curse. They were bound by something stronger: trust, courage, and an unbreakable connection that would guide them through all the shadows yet to come. And as the first rays of sunlight touched the mountain peaks, the forest whispered a secret, carried on the wind. Even freed, the wolf's heart is never still, but love, courage, and bond endure beyond time. Ilara and Kale stood together, facing the rising sun, ready to embrace the destiny that awaited them. Together, unshakable and eternal.